Welcome back to True Impact Outdoors. Hope everyone's having a good week. I want to drop this video. We left off with some chamfered deburred cases. These were new Hornady brass. So today we are going to prime them. I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we'll may drop the charge and see the bullet today. So what I'm going to do, I'm using these CCI. These are BR2 primers, matched primers. That's pretty much what I run in my 6.5s. We're just going to dump out 20. We'll be using a hand priming tool today. So you can just grab this. Here's how I do it. I grab the primer, put this over here, turn it upside down. And you see that most of them are all upright. There's about 3 there. If you shake that, like that right there, it will they will all line up. They all line up, and once we do that, we will put the top on. We'll put this in our hand priming tool. This is an RCBS hand primer, and it's as simple as you grab the case, snap it in place, good pull. I run my hand over it, make sure it's just a little below flush, or you can set it down on a flat surface, make sure it doesn't have a wobble. And we will do that. It's a very simple process, quick. And one thing I do is I don't have any of my powder or anything sitting around. I only prime my cases separate. I do not store my powder near my primers. When you put these primers in here, you will need to have some form of safety glasses, and you would not want to look into the case. If you notice, when I do it, I always turn it away from me. If for whatever reason it went off, you don't want that blowing that charge right to your face. So turn it away from you, a good steady squeeze. If something doesn't feel right, and you'll get the feel, don't just keep squeezing. Back out of it and find out what the problem is. You don't want to turn one upside down or get one hung. But it's a real simple process. So I'm going to go ahead and finish priming these, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to drop a charge. Alright guys, we've got our brass primed up and ready to go. They have their primers, they've been chamfered and deburred. The first thing I do about measuring a powder charge, obviously, is consult the manual and get the correct charge. This is an established 6.5. We know exactly how many grains of powder we're using. We're using H4350. We're under the max by at least a half a grain. But anyway, you'll have to look at your manual and see what powder you're using, and stay within the manual. I would not ever recommend going over what's written in those manuals, ever. But first thing we do, we're going to calibrate our scale. So we're going to grab this. We're going to set this up here. Careful not to touch the scale. And we're going to let this settle out. Me talking may actually put enough wind that it moves it. You have to be very careful when you're using the scale. It's a very delicate and very sensitive instrument, I guess you'd say. And what will happen, a lot of times I'll grab it with this paper clip and I'll pull it down and I'll let it go and just check it again. And depending on the camera angle, but that is zeroed perfectly. One thing, and you'll notice what I do, and I have a line back there on a sheet of paper. I always point my powder cup here in the exact same direction, and I line it up with that line. It's very sensitive. I don't want to push down. I used to weigh it where it was just on that wood, and I would get erroneous weights and measurements between the two, and they weren't as consistent. So what I did was I had a little piece of granite. I put that granite up there, and that seemed to help my consistency. But when I trickle in, you'll see I'll trickle this powder. I'll only touch this board right here, this corner piece, and I'll touch that, and I'll trickle that powder into my pan without pushing on this at all. I don't want to touch that at all, because I don't even trickle powder when the AC or the heat's going, because just the air in the room will cause that to read erroneous weights. And so what I'll do is I'll get this set up and show y'all how to trickle in some powder. All right, guys, what I do is I just take a scoop, drop it in my pan. I'll take this, I'll set it up there carefully. I set that in there first. Then I grab my little trickler. I'll come down here and I'll put a couple scoops in there. Get that going. I'll go ahead and spin it and get some dropping out. I'll set this right here like that. And then I'll watch this and I'll trickle up to my powder charge. There it is. All right, so we've just measured out our powder charge for one case. All right, over the case, I grab my charge, and I'm careful not to make sure any grains spill. There we go. So we have a charge in the case. I'll grab my bullet, and I'll drop 10 at a time, but for illustration I'm just going to drop one. I'll take the bullet, I'll seat it just by hand. I always turn mine 90 degrees, make sure it's straight. We're good. Now we're ready to get our die. So I get out our 6.5 die. My die is already set up. There's two dies. This is a resizing die. Has a long capping pin, and that's the one we size with. Our seating die is this, and it has the adjustable sleeve that grabs that bullet as it comes up and helps straighten it. So this is what we use to seat a bullet with. As simple as grabbing it in. Once you adjust it, and we'll go over adjusting them later on a later video. Take your shell holder, the appropriate shell holder for each cartridge, and now we're ready to actually seat the bullet. We grab our prime chamfered and deburred case. Powder's been dropped, the charge, and the bullet's sitting in there. Now we have to seat the bullet. So you simply insert the bullet into the shell holder, grab your lever down, one good smooth stroke, come up, you have a round that's ready to be fired. It's as simple as that. Hey guys, just want to give you some final thoughts on our little reloading series. As you can see, I loaded up 20. 18 felt very consistent. The neck tension felt consistent. But these two here felt different. And so what I do is on those that feel different, I keep those separate. I separate those out. Those will be just a couple of Fowler shots or to warm the barrel up, but I would not use those obviously in a competition or shoot when I really want to hit what I'm trying to hit. a target a long ways off. But I would use those for warm up. So that's a little passing note. A couple other things I want to talk about when you're reloading. Do not reload unless you can give it your undivided attention. Like I said, it's a very safe and enjoyable hobby if you follow the rules. Don't go outside the manufacturer's recommendations in their powder charges. Use the appropriate powder. Dedicate a room or a area that you can have a controlled area where there's not a lot of interruptions. Can't stress that enough. You don't want to have a mistake, grab the wrong powder or a tremendously wrong powder charge and blow a finger off or worse. Never shoot anyone else's reloads. And if there's any question, because there's so much information out there online, call the manufacturer. I've called Hornady, I've called Hodgson's. They're very helpful. But always consider the source of where you get your information. Another thing in this rock chunker kit was this little digital scale. As you see, I was wearing all my charges on a balance beam scale. This little digital scale is not that accurate, especially when the batteries start getting a little bit weak. It'll start giving you several tenths of a grain error from charge to charge. You can weigh it and it may weigh X amount. You can take it off and lay it right back on the scale and it may give you 2/10 difference. But it's just a little cheap digital scale. I would not recommend it. I would recommend getting you a balance beam scale. Also, when you set your balance beam scale up, make sure it's on something very solid. And I recommend setting it up at, when you're standing flat-footed, make sure it is at eye level. You don't want to have to tippy toe. You don't want to be dipping. Eye level. It'll be more convenient for you, and you'll weigh a more accurate charge. Whatever you do, standardize your practice. Do it the same way. And if you're going to change something, only change one variable at a time, so that you start changing 2 or 3 things at once. You don't know what the cause or an effect was based on the variables that you change. So, and that's what I do. We have a standard load that we use, and if I change anything, if I want to experiment with maybe a seating depth or try to polish a neck or do a little something different, I always have my standard ammo that I know shoots great in my gun, and so I can come back and I change one variable and see the cause and effect. And I always try to take a sample size large enough, because if you're only shooting 3 to 5, that's not large enough. You can have a lot of noise in a 3 to 5 sample. Shoot 20, 30, 50 round samples. Obviously not at once, but you can shoot 10 round strings, 5 round strings. If you have a small sporter barrel, even 3 shots. Let it cool, 3 shots. Let it cool, 3 shots. Until you get enough data in that sample that it's a valid sample to test. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. We'll go over some more details about reloading. Remember, this was reloading new cases. Now we're going to do a little separate section coming up on a fired case and what we do there. So anyway, thanks. Hope you all are having a great week, and God bless.